When I was born, I received the Hebrew name of Melech Yaakov. Today I continue to live in the area where I was born in New York. We were a semi-religious family. We belonged to a Hasidic congregation to which we went every Saturday, but we did not respect all the strict observances required in Hasidic Judaism. For those that you don't know, Hasidism is known as ultra-Orthodox Judaism. Healthy called so because of their strict observances of halacha, law Jewish mythology, and for following Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah. It's the people strangers you see walking down the street wearing black suits and hats and leaving their beards and sideburns very long. However, no, that's how we were. My family cooked and used electricity on the Sabbath, and I wore a yarmulke on my head. In addition, I grew up in a secular environment, surrounded by schoolmates and non-Jewish friends. For many years he continued to feel guilty about driving on Saturdays and eating non-kosher foods. Although not, however, he had a strong sense of being the path that God wanted him to live, and so, every time he omitted a rule, I was committing sin in God's eyes. Since I was little, my mother read to I have the stories of great rabbis such as Eleazar, the Baal Shem Tov, and the legends of the Haggadah, part of the Talmud besides the Halacha, and the Torah. All these stories had the same ethical message that helped me identify with the community and, later, with Israel. The stories showed how the Jews have been oppressed throughout history, but as God has always stood on the side of his people to the end. The stories we Jews grew up with showed us that miracles have always saved the Jews, every time they have been in their homes. Greatest moments of need, the survival of the Jews throughout the history, despite odds to the contrary, is seen as a miracle by itself. If a person wants an objective view of why the majority of Jews have a position irrational Zionist towards Israel, must understand the way they were indoctrinated with these stories since childhood. That is why the Zionists they pretend that they are not doing anything wrong. All the Gwa, Gentiles, are seen as enemies waiting to attack, and as such, they are not reliable. The Jewish people have a very strong bond with each other and see themselves as the God's chosen people. For many years I believed this myself. Although it had a strong sense of identity as a Jew, he couldn't stand going to the services religious, shul, on Saturdays. I still remember as a boy being forced to go to shul with my father. I remember how terribly it was boring to me and how they all looked weird in their black hats and beards praying in a foreign language. It was like being thrown into a world away from my friends and people I knew. That's what I thought it should be, but I, and my parents, never adopted the Hasidic life as the rest of my family. When I turned 13, I had a bar mitzvah like every Jewish boy who becomes a man. I also started wearing tefillin, Hebrew amulets, every morning. They said it was dangerous not to put them on because it was like an omen and bad things could happen to you. On the first day I didn't wear tefillin, my mother's car was stolen. That event encouraged me to use it for a long time. Shortly after my bar mitzvah, my family stopped going to synagogue for good. They couldn't endure 3.5 hours of prayer and thought they had made my bar mitzvah was the most important. Later my father was involved in a silly discussion with some members of the congregation and we stopped going to services religious. Then something strange happened. My father was convinced by a friend to accept Jesus into their hearts. By the will of God, my mother did not divorce my father because of his conversion to Christianity, but kept a silent hatred of it ever since. It was also a period in my early adolescence when I tried to look for something with which identify myself. My father's conversion helped me question my own beliefs. I began to ask questions like, what exactly is a Jew? Or is Judaism a culture, a nation, or a religion? If it is a nation, then how can Jews be citizens of two nations? If Judaism is a religion, why that prayers are recited in Hebrew, prayers to Eretz Israel and observance of Oriental rituals? If Judaism is only a culture, the person would not cease to be Jewish if he stopped speaking Hebrew and practicing the Jewish customs. If a Jew is the one who observes the commandments of the Torah, why Abraham is called the was it that the first Jew lived before the Torah descended to Moses? By the way, the Torah it does not say that he was a Jew. The word Jew comes from the name of one of the 12 sons of Jacob, Judah. The Jews were not called Jews until the kingdom of Judah was established, after the time of Solomon. Tradition says that a Jew is one whose mother was Jewess. So, you can remain a Jew if you practice Christianity or atheism. More and more I began to move away from Judaism. There were many laws and mitzvahs, good deeds, to observe. What is the meaning of all these different rituals? I began to question myself. For me, they were all made by the man.